Hello, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. I will not greet you in your time. I think we have multiple participants from different time zones. So, welcome, whether it is an early morning, evening, your time. Thank you for being with us. Today's webinar will be run by myself. My name is Livia, and I also have my fellow colleague Lauren.
Hi,
Both
everyone.
of us are hi. So both of us are members of our global team. We deliver client success for our highest priority clients, and we also double head to deliver HR advisory as well to senior leaders around the world. Well, Lauren, any quick words from you before we start?
No, just happy to be here. I've been with Top Employers Institute for over 6 years and work primarily with our European and America's clients. But yeah, I'm excited about this topic, excited to get going.
Excellent. I suppose then I should have mentioned I'm based here in Singapore. My background is in HR, is in big tech, HR operations, DEI programs, and here in Top Employers, I cover a global as well as Asia Pacific portfolio. So it's fun to be doing this with you, Lauren. I'm very excited. Now, today's topic is designing work in the age of agentic AI, right? And we'll look at how intelligent systems are reshaping workflows, roles, and accountability. Big mouthful, a lot of long words, and quite a lot that we'll cover today, but let's get into it. And right before jumping in, I thought that for the benefit of those of you who don't know Top Employers Institute, I thought I would quickly cover who we are and what we do. Now, at Top Employers Institute, we are the leading certifier of HR excellence, and we're also known as a leading data insights provider in that space. So we assess more than 2,500 companies across now 131 countries and growing. And this allows us to offer the world's only HR maturity benchmark that holds companies accountable to a very high bar of people practices that is globally standardized. So every year we work with, you can imagine, each of those 2,500 companies. We work with their multinational, their local HR teams. Per company, we gather more than 250 data points about how they design policies, how they execute, how they communicate, and then we audit the HR function end to end, right? So those companies that achieve a passing score then get to carry the prestigious Top Employer seal for that year. And I think through this extensive work, we are proud to say that we positively impact the lives of over 14 million employees globally. So now, I think with that extensive body of work that we do with some of these companies, I won't read out all their brands, but we are very proud to partner with some of these key clients of ours. I think out of this, we have come to realize that AI is very, very much top of mind for a lot of the leaders in these companies and beyond. So, on that note, Lauren, why, in your view as well, why is it so important that we discuss the impact of agentic AI at work right now?
Thanks, Liv. Yeah, the conversation around AI is definitely starting to change. For the last few years, organizations have been asking, what can AI do? But increasingly, the harder question is, what happens when AI becomes part of the work that gets done? So, and that's what's covered in our newly released report. It explores questions that HR leaders are increasingly, grappling with. Firstly, why isn't AI delivering value as quickly as expected? How does work change? And, when AI starts executing these workflows? And how do organizations scale AI while maintaining trust and acting responsibly? So ultimately, this isn't just a technology story, it's an organizational design story. But before we dive into the report, Liv, I know things are changing really quickly. Can you give us a snapshot of kind of what's happening around the world in AI?
Yes, and you're right. It is a lot is happening very, very quickly. So I think let's have a quick look at sort of, I would say, maybe three pieces of news that I found quite interesting to share with everyone. And as we go into it, I think I should have mentioned this upfront as well, but this, let's keep this session interactive as well. By all means, we would love to see you actively using the chat function, the Q&A. You can also send questions directly to us as well. That is an option. And we have a couple of polls coming up for you. So let's make this a two-way conversation. I would love to hear your views, your comments at any point in time. All right. Now, what's happening around the world? I thought the first piece I would share with you is, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of DILA. So Albania is the world's first country to appoint an AI, essentially an AI agent, as their first AI appointed minister. And DILA's, raison d'etre, her purpose of being, is really to ensure that public tenders are 100% free of corruption, because DILA is the AI minister who cannot be bribed. Now, this was actually released last September, and as of today, I am happy to share with you that DILA has, what they now have announced, DILA has 83 babies. And how that works is that there are 83 sub-agents being built under DILA to partner with their cabinet, to partner with their community base, and really to ensure that Albania is a corruption-free nation. Right. Now, on top of that, I think the next piece that I want to share with you was, let's see if this will come up. Yes. Now, just in March earlier this year, Jensen Huang stood on stage at the GTC conference, and he floated the idea that the future of engineering offers will include AI tokens as a sign-on bonus. Significantly, I think what's hit the news very much is how much of that comp package could be AI tokens. And what he suggested was 50%, 50%. So imagine you have a 200,000 or 400,000 AI engineer in terms of comp base. And he's floating the idea that half of the equivalent of half of that would need to be the amount of AI tokens he expects them to consume, right, on an annual basis. Now, what does that mean for changes in the way in which we conduct our workforce planning, the way in which we go to market with what attractive benefits looks like for the talent market? That's something for us to think about. And already on levels FYI, more than 62% of engineers are saying that they expect AI to access as a must-have in job offers. So how is that then going to change the way in which we attract talent? The final piece I wanted to share with you is that I think some of you may have also seen the news that around about, I think it was December 2025, when Uber rolled out, Claude to something like 5,000 engineers. They were very proud to say that 95% of the engineers are now using AI. That was just around about March of this year. By April, things had taken a bit of an unexpected spin, and the CTO had shared in a podcast that their full year AI budget has now been exhausted in the first 4 months of 2026. And now what does that mean for the organization? They're now back to the drawing board, having to relook at their AI strategy, and perhaps an all-in or nothing approach might not have been the best for them. And that's something they're learning in hindsight. So with all of that happening, I think top of mind for a lot of organizations is what's the ROI, right? A lot of us are investing heavily in expensive tools. What's the return on investment on that? So if you don't mind, Lauren, I'll press on to some of that. Now, let's see. Yes. Now, I think PwC had conducted some extensive research on this with more than 4,500 CEOs surveyed globally already in this year. And astonishingly, only 1/3 of CEOs have seen returns from AI investment, right? And out of that 1/3, we see that only 12% have successfully seen what we call the double crown of ROI, which is an increase in revenue along with a decrease in cost from using AI. Now, what's the flip side of that story? If we pay a little bit of attention to all those boxes in gray, then when you combine those that have not seen any upside from the AI investment, that's quite a figure. So 55% of CEOs globally have not seen, not only have they not seen any upside from AI, but you see that we've got sort of a little red box in the corner. We've got some of those businesses that have seen a decrease in revenue with an increase in cost. And that's quite the opposite of where we want to be with AI. Well, with all of that now, what does that then mean? And I'm curious to also hear from everyone. Is that expected? Right now, I think a conventional wisdom and a piece that Deloitte has been sharing for many, many years now is that most technology investments demonstrate returns in somewhere around 7 to 12 months. Now guess, and I'd love for you to just pop your answer in the chat box on the side. Guess how long it takes for AI adoption to achieve that satisfactory return? Anyone at all?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the guesses are.
We give it some time. We have a lot of shy attendees, but don't be shy. By all means, pop your guess into the chat. 6 months, 9 months, 12, 24, 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 to 3 years. Good guess. Anyone else? 2 years. Okay. Anyone else? We're taking a third response. Yeah, okay, we've got some. Incredible. This is very interesting. Thank you. So we have some guesses that it's quite wide ranging now. It's coming in somewhere between 12 months to 3 years. I would say a median of 2 to 3. Very interesting. Yeah, 10 to 14 months, interestingly enough. So
6 months.
6 months.
Nice.
Now, I think we're learning as we go, right? And just for perspective, we have been asking this question since about the early part of April. And what we realized is in somewhere around April, the guesses were much shorter. We heard 3 months, we heard 6, we heard 9. And I remember being in the room when someone mentioned that it was quite a moment. She put her hand up and she said, "The board thinks it's immediate." So when we have these high expectations of returns, what actually is that figure? Now, Deloitte's research has shown it is 2 to 4 years. So some of you are absolutely on point. Thank you for the guesses. Again, there were no wrong answers, and some organizations, indeed, about 6% of executives are seeing in returns in less than 1 year. And that's maybe a lot less than what we would expect, right? Many times we have pressure from the top to say that how do we justify what we've put in? And many of us think we will be in that 6%, but we know statistics show that it's much more likely that we are in the 94%. So from there, what I would love to think about is then, well, has org reality caught up with individual adoption? And again, from the events that we have been running over the last 2.5, well, actually almost 3 months now, what we've realized is that from speaking to more than 350 HR respondents at our events, somehow org reality isn't quite catching up with individual adoption. And where I would zoom in on is that, yes, the vast majority of HR professionals and leaders, 89% are indeed using AI, for, straightforward things, for idea generation, for advice, text, content editing. But at the same time, only 12% are running autonomous AI workflows. So that's, where we are at right now. And secondly, we've got, actually, when it comes to org adoption, we realized that only 21%, and 1/5 of our respondents are saying that, hey, AI adoption in my organization is actually still quite ad hoc, right? People are just figuring it out by themselves. So on that note, I'm curious as to see, I think, would we like at this point to run a quick poll? Lauren, do you think we can check in to see how people are doing?
Yes, that sounds good. Let me open it up.
All right. So we're curious. I think this is what we saw, but we're curious about, all of you in the room with us. Which of the following best describes how AI is used in your organization today? I'll wait for the responses to come in.
We've got a very quick 6 responses there for AI helping create content or analyze information.
Clear winner. A lot of us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still moving slightly, but I think the majority are just using AI when it comes to, creating content, analyzing the information, more on the generative side. Very interesting. You'll see as you go deeper down. So C, for instance, that's more on the agentic AI side, which we'll be talking a bit more today about.
Thanks for mentioning that, Lauren. That's a very important point. Do you think you could share, as we get into it, I love that, 9% in the room are already autonomously executing workflows. Do you think you could share more about what exactly agentic AI is and how is it different?
Sure. So if I go to the next slide, there we go. So if organizations are struggling to realize value from AI, the obvious question is, well, what are they actually preparing for? And to answer this, we need to understand what has changed about AI itself. So here's a Gartner definition of agentic AI, and I'll read it out loud. Agentic AI is a type of artificial intelligence technology that can act autonomously to achieve a goal with limited human intervention. Now, I don't think HR leaders need to become AI engineers, so no panic needed there. But the more important question is, how is this different from the AI we've been talking about for the past few years? Because this isn't simply a smarter chatbot. It doesn't just generate content. It can plan. It can make decisions. It can take actions, and increasingly it can coordinate activities across systems. So that's why organizations are paying attention. So we have traditional AI, which helped us analyze. We have generative AI, and that helps us create. And it looks like majority of the audience here are, more in that stage. But it still depends on you. It just depends on your prompts, and it responds. Agentic AI takes another step. So think of it as a very capable junior colleague. You give it a goal, and it figures out the steps and executes it. Then we have multi-agent AI systems. And that's where multiple agents work together to complete an entire workflow. So one may screen candidates, one schedules interviews, one drafts the interview questions. And suddenly we're not talking about tasks anymore. We're talking about systems. So the shift is no longer humans versus AI. The shift is tasks versus systems. So historically, AI has helped people perform tasks more efficiently, but agentic AI changes the unit of work. So AI starts executing workflows. And then humans move towards directing, judging, and improving systems. So roles become less about activity and more about the outcomes. And managers become responsible not only for people, but increasingly for how people and these intelligent systems work together. And that's why agentic AI is an HR topic. It changes not just what technology can do, but how work is designed. So I want to show the audience this. This is an entire HR team that was built in Claude. And this isn't the future. It exists today. the technology is improving incredibly quickly. So when you look at this entire HR team built in Claude, how does it make you feel? Curious to know if you can pop in the chat. Are you excited about this? Are you curious? Are you skeptical? Maybe a little uncomfortable? And Liv, I know that you showed this in your seminar, your People Summit in Singapore. What were people saying there about this?
I'll hold off on that until we see some responses in the chat. I don't want to preface how people are thinking.
So a whole HR team built in Claude. Does it make you nervous, excited?
No right or wrong answers, really. It makes me nervous, if I'm honest. It makes me excited at the same time as a little bit nervous. Because I'm
just more curious. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit nervous.
A bit nervous.
Cautiously optimistic. I love that.
Excited. Nice.
It is very exciting. I do agree with you. Not warm.
I think I feel the same way. I'm excited, but I'm curious. I'm actually all the feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had some responses. Of course, we ran this through some of our Asia-based events in a few cities, Kuala Lumpur, in Mumbai, in Singapore. Now, just I would say a week ago now in Bangkok. Very interesting responses in the room. I think we had some cautious optimism as well, exactly the same here. We had someone who said, I should retire and be a plumber. So we had, I think there was also a level of anxiety in the room. I think it was important to name that anxiety as well. And great comment there, Linda. Connection between human beings is the most important in our lives. By using AI, one misses all kinds of cues. I do agree. Now, I think looking at this, we've got a spectrum of emotions between us in HR in the room. And now if we think this is what's happening when agentic AI is disrupting our work. Now think about agentic AI disrupting, our employee base's work, marketing, finance, sales, operations, manufacturing, all of it. Well, how are they feeling? And HR is in the position of designing the guardrails for our employee base, right? And we're working, designing comms for that spectrum of emotions within the workforce. So just something to think about. Yeah.
100%. Sorry, Liv, just to add there, like you say, like if this is how we're feeling, imagine how employees are feeling too, that's why this AI adoption is not only a technology challenge, it becomes a human challenge. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Liv, what would you say is the number one thing HR leaders should be concerned about?
Thanks for the question, Lauren. I think that can take us into actually the crux of today's webinar is also a preface for our agentic AI report that's newly been released, as Lauren had mentioned earlier. And in that report, we talk about 3 principles that Top Employers Institute research has shown is really, really important that HR leaders bear in mind today in the agentic AI era. And the first, I think the first principle to bear in mind is how do we design for trust, for clarity, and for adoption? Now, why is some of that top of mind for us today? Now, I think we have very, very powerful AI models being released. DeepSeek is evolving all the time. Opus 4.6, 4.7 starting earlier this year. And now there's Cowork, Claude Code, right? Obviously, Gemini is up on par, very competitive models with 3 Pro as well, and OpenAI is hot on everybody's heels. So see, the question is now no longer what the technology can do, because now almost your imagination becomes the limit, right? And AI can achieve almost, anything that you could ask of it. And it will learn very, very quickly, even if it's not very capable today, right? Models are almost doubling in capabilities, say it used to be every 6 months, and now I believe it's much shorter. So the point now is not what you can do with the technology, but what are people doing with it? And that boils down to how humans understand it, how we work with it, how we rely on it, right? Because adoption isn't going to come automatically. Now, the catch here is that people use a technology when they trust it and when they're confident that the system is going to work in their favor, right? But here we now see a growing gap between leaders and employees on AI sentiment. You can see here that the confidence is certainly not shared. And it can even boil down to personal benefit, right? You see here that actually it's from Microsoft's Work Trends Index, that in that little laptop statistic, you see that leaders are 2 times more likely to say that AI will accelerate their personal career. Whereas employees have a certain level of anxiety about, hey, what does this mean for my job? What does this mean for my work, right? And on then the flip side, we've got one level of excitement. The leaders see performance gains, efficiency gains, infinite possibilities for business impact. But on the flip side, employees are thinking, what does this mean for me? And we've got that gap. Then what we really need to close it with is supportive comms, as well as the frameworks for employees to have confidence that this is going to be beneficial for them. But yet we see that only 1 in 4 frontline workers say that they feel supported by leaders when it comes to AI adoption. So, this is the conundrum that we are facing, right? We've got that gap in expectations and optimism. And what does that then actually look like in practice? And what does that gap then mean for us? I wanted to bring in a study done by Stanford Digital Economy Lab, and they had looked at enterprise AI deployments across multiple industries. And this is actually very fresh research from slightly earlier this year. And they found that 95% of AI deployments are failing due to lack of workforce readiness, due to the people factors, not the tech factors. So I would encourage all of you to go and look into this study and really read it by yourselves. It's really interesting. But long story short, in that model you see on the right-hand side, in short, they said that a few factors outweigh heavily the tech. So number 1, the workforce being not prepared enough, right? So not having the guidance and the guardrails as to know where should we be implementing AI. Number 2, the missing governance, right? This is where people build in silos, teams run fast and loose with data privacy. You know what that means. And the final one, which is a factor we seldom call out, lack of leadership sponsorship at the highest levels, lack of leadership behaviors that really create the psychological safety for people to experiment with AI and also fail, right? So building that environment and culture that, hey, it's okay for us to try different things with AI. And on the flip side, you see this outweighs do we have a high-performing AI model? Do we have the latest Copilot or ChatGPT? It's really not necessary, right? And it matters much less how much we spend on the AI model. It matters less how we do the integration. And it matters much more how do we prepare our people to work well with AI. So that comes down then to the core recommendations that we have from a top employer standpoint, which is, as HR, how are we empowering our people from the bottom up? Are we involving our employees early and often in terms of how are you using AI in your day-to-day work? Back to Lauren's point earlier, how can it benefit your own workflows, right? And let's think about where can we implement AI first to help frontline employees the most, because that's where you get your early sentiment wins. And finally, as an example of a company that we work with that has done this really, really well, I thought I would share with you an example from Yum China. So Yum China, one of our close clients, they operate KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell in China across multiple cities. And what they have done is to actually introduce an AI agent called Curate to help frontline managers. And this is where they looked at the tasks that their frontline staff are struggling with the most, the repeatable ones, the ones that take up the most time. Roster duty scheduling, managing inventory on a day-to-day basis, in the outlets, in Taco Bell and KFC outlets, all at the drop of a voice note. So it's not even the click of a button anymore. So as a frontline manager, you don't even have to type many instructions into your phone. You could pick up your phone and just say, "Hey, Curate, please do this." Or send me, I'm ready for work. What happened since last night that I should be aware of? So Curate Agent supports managers across all these day-to-day activities. And in fact, over 80% of their restaurant new hires are now completed through AI-enabled recruitment. So you see, this allows the managers to spend much less time to worry about candidate experience and much more time to coach teams on how do you improve customer experience. Right. So I think this is where they have made a clear effort as well. In building Curate, they had actually consulted employees extensively into what do you really need the most. They had a company-wide hackathon. So they have a dedicated innovation fund, where frontline teams can then contribute ideas and how can we improve Curate even further from here. So you see, I think this is a great example of where you involve your people way at the front line of AI innovation. And that's what creates the conditions for people to be excited and to adopt AI over time. I've got a very quick summary slide here just for this first principle, which is how do we involve employees early and often, as we've mentioned. How in HR can we design for trust and not just for efficiency? And finally, how do we continuously evaluate our impact over time, right? Not just implementing, but how do we then monitor how people are using, feeling about AI, and how is it effective to achieve the goals and metrics that we had set out? I've spoken quite a lot now, but I think, from this point of view, Lauren, listening to all of this, how do you think you would take this further in how this affects the work we do in HR?
Yeah, well, I think AI changes the structure of work itself. So for decades, we've designed organizations around jobs, reporting lines, and headcount. But if work increasingly happens through workflows involving humans and AI, then jobs may stop being like the main unit of design. So I think HR leaders are going to spend much more time asking how should work happen rather than what jobs do we need. And that's quite a different conversation. So the question becomes, how do we design this organization where humans and AI work together? Because once AI becomes part of workflows, it's not only technology that changes, but the organization itself will change. And I think this is where HR will play an increasingly important role. So this may be one of the biggest shifts HR faces over the next few years. As I mentioned, historically, HR designed jobs. We thought about roles, tasks, job families. But as AI increasingly executes workflows, the challenge becomes different. We have to decide what decisions stay human, which can be automated, how do humans and AI collaborate, and how do we measure contribution and performance. So ultimately, it's about designing how humans and AI work together. And once you see it in that way, a lot of the traditional assumptions about organizational design start to change. So that brings us to our second principle, which is modernize recruitment, training, and pay for the AI age. So if HR is increasingly designing how humans and AI work together, what exactly needs to change? How do we define performance? How do we develop talent? And how do we prepare for a very different world of work? So I'm going to stop there and quickly add a poll. Let's open one up. And we're not going to spend too much time because Liv and I do love talking, so we may run out of time. But the poll is open. What do you think will become the most valuable skill in the AI era? So we're looking at expertise, efficiency, AI fluency, adaptability, or is it the ability to orchestrate human and AI? I think we already have quite a clear winner, and I'm very glad because that aligns with my next slide. So what does this shift look like in practice? We're starting to see a new archetype emerge, which is the AI orchestrator. And this is someone who uses AI to operate like a small team. So they combine tools, agents, and workflows to achieve outcomes that previously required several people. And that changes how we think about performance. So top talent may no longer be defined only by expertise. Increasingly, it may be someone who can orchestrate people, AI, and workflows together. So the highest performers of the future may not be people who know the most. It may be people who can orchestrate the most. So I think, there we go. So I love this example. Vodacom Group is one of our top employers and a client we work really closely with. What stands out isn't the technology, it's how they are democratizing AI. So many organizations centralize AI expertise. Vodacom is doing something slightly different. They're asking, how do we enable thousands of employees to work differently? So they started with what they call a citizen developer program. And instead of AI sitting with a central team, employees across the business are given the tools, the training, the guardrails to build solutions within their own domain. So today, more than 500 employees are part of this community. And together they've developed more than 650 automated and data-driven processes, creating nearly 1 million euros in quantified benefits. So I think there's a huge lesson to learn here in that the constraint of AI may not be the technology, it may be who has access to it. And Vodacom is betting that the future belongs to organizations where everyone can participate. So what does this mean in practice? 3 things. First, redesign roles around AI-enabled work. Second, measure outcomes, not effort. And third, plan your workforce with AI in the picture. And then perhaps the biggest shift of all, we're no longer planning for jobs alone. We're planning for systems where humans and AI create value together. Liv, we've talked about what organizations can do, but where do ethics come into all of this?
Thank you, Lauren. I'll try and speed through this very quickly because I know we're very, very close to time. But thank you for that very important question and I would say, a question that's not asked enough. Now, our third principle here is how can we build an ethical AI framework for scale? And what I really want to emphasize here is that an AI framework is not the same as an ethical AI framework. Now, I think almost every organization today will have some form of AI policy, but the risk of AI ethics is that, as we know very often, we write put a lot of thought and a committee comes together and builds a beautiful paper policy, and then that's where it stays on paper. So that's not what we're talking about here, right? At Top Employers, we talk very much about how can we leverage as a business, how can we leverage AI meaningfully in day-to-day practice in a way that is respectful to employees and also responsible to society overall. I'll give you a very short example to articulate exactly how, what the risks of this could look like. So somewhere, I think it was April of just this year, in the Shanghai Artificial Intelligence Lab, an engineer decided to build, as a joke actually, an open source GitHub skill called Colleague Skill. And so what Colleague Skill does is it takes all of your chat history in your employee chat communications, the documents that you created, and it builds your digital twin for you. Unfortunately, he built this GitHub skill so well, and it worked actually very, very well, that there was a gaming company in Shandong that deployed this skill when one of the HR specialists left the business. So HR specialist has left. Their digital twin is now built. Now, employees who don't know that the HR specialist has left start to ping this person asking, for help and things and support and things like that. They actually then have a auto response coming back that then says, "Dear so-and-so, thank you for your request. So-and-so has left the business. As of this date, I am their digital twin. Feel free to ask me any questions and I'll respond to you based on documentation and policies up to date as of this date." So I don't know how that makes you feel. Feel free to put any of your comments in the chat as well. But, the first time I learned of this, it gave me goosebumps. Because, of course, this incident blew up on social media. There was a lot of extensive debate about what are the ethical implications around this? What does this mean for employees, right? And the work that we do and, the knowledge that we have. At the same time, organizations are very invested to keep that contextual knowledge, the implicit and tacit knowledge that is in employees' heads. So again, I'm not here to make any statements about what should or shouldn't be done by the business, but that's an example of, of what happens when you design without really thinking about the implications around what we could do. So on the flip side, an example I thought we could share with you that one of our clients has put in place very stringent and really people-centric guidelines around AI governance. UST is one of the clients that we work with, actually an enterprise certified top employer, the digital transformation business with about 30,000 employees worldwide. And what stands out in their approach is that governance is not a control mechanism. It's actually baked into day-to-day conversations and day-to-day workflows of their people. So the enterprise AI tool is extensively trained on AI ethics. So if a conversation begins to go sideways, you can have that reminder to pull, hey, is this what you originally intended? And are we thinking about the consequences, unintended consequences? So the tool can help you cover your blind spots. Right. So that includes things like the human AI impact assessment is embedded in the solution gating. It's not just a review all the way at the end when, the process has been built. HR sits at frontline review, and there are kill switch controls because they have some customer facing use cases that are quite sensitive in the healthcare sector for the high risk use cases. And finally, earlier we talked about, implementing continuous evaluation. So here you see they have a 30, 60, 90-day pulse check post-deployment to see that, hey, are employees using this in the way we anticipated? And finally, HR had put in place, you said this, we did that log, right? So there's always a closed feedback loop that employees can say, I raised this concern, what happened, what did we do about it? Finally, I won't spend too much time again on this slide, but we know that top employers are, with ethical AI frameworks are actually already ahead. And this is helping them to prepare better for the next phase of AI innovation. So those two practices are what we see as the adoption gap between companies that have and don't have an ethical AI framework are also ahead in much more future preparation readiness, right? Change readiness, resilience, involving your employees in AI ethics, and so forth. So I just want to leave you with a quick quote from our CEO, and that is, our newly CEO Agent segment has said that ethical AI functions as a form of risk infrastructure. So this becomes a competitive advantage, and not to restrict innovation, but to create clear boundaries where your innovation in your business can safely scale. Our top 3 recommendations for these principles are here. Build guardrails together with your employees, evaluate impact over time, and finally, lead with not just the process, but lead with your employee values, and lead with your EVP and what is important to the culture of your business, because that's what we don't want to lose as we build for automation. All right. Now, I know that we are actually a minute over time, Lawrence. So very quickly, would you like to take us through, any final thoughts from your side? And do we even have time for some questions from the audience as well? Is that possible?
I mean, I think if they can start popping their questions in, for those that are willing to hang around, we can certainly answer 1 or 2. But from what we've covered today, we start by looking at why AI isn't delivering value as quickly as many organizations expected. We explored agentic AI and how it's changing. And we discussed why trust and ethics are becoming just as important as capability. But perhaps the biggest takeaway is AI simply isn't just changing technology. It's changing how organizations work. So let's have a look. We don't have any questions so far, but I did want to leave you with one quote while we do wait for any questions. And that's: companies are pouring 93% of their AI budgets into technology and only 7% into the people expected to use it. And I think that's quite an important reminder, because throughout this session, we've argued that the biggest challenges aren't necessarily technical. They're organization, they're human, they involve trust. And sometimes I wonder if the biggest risk isn't moving too slowly, it's actually moving quickly, by simply creating old ways of working with new technology. So,
thank you, Lauren. Beautifully put. And I love this quote. Thanks for sharing that. 2 questions. Yes, we will absolutely share the slides. You will receive them. I believe the email will be sent tomorrow to everybody. We also have another version, I think, of this webinar being done in US time zone. So that email will come tomorrow to all. Questions in the chat. What would be the impact of AI on career progression, as that was largely influenced by tenure in a position? That is a great question. I'll take it quickly, and then maybe Lauren will come to you. My first view is that depends on how your organization then designs the future of career progression. A lot of companies we work with today are having a concurrent AI as well as a skills-first organization evolution. And I think those two complement each other beautifully. I already see some companies that are incentivizing career progression based on up-leveling and attaining different levels in skills effectiveness. So that is much less to do with how many years in seat you have had, and much more to do with how fast are you learning, how fast are you upskilling yourself, and how quickly can you demonstrate, let's say, the next tier of perhaps it's leadership skills, communication skills, technical skills in a certain domain. So that's incentivizing quick learning among your population. That's just a quick one from my side. Lauren, anything to add or on any of the other questions?
Yeah, fully aligned. I do think we need to move on, but please do get in touch with us. We'd love to continue this conversation offline. So if you agree, Liv, I think we should close it for now. Thank you to everyone that's joined. Liv, it's been lovely presenting with you. I think it's our first time that we've presented together. And I hope that everyone's taking, some sort of findings that they can take back to your organization. Before we close, just a few things that you need to be aware of. So you'll receive a follow-up email from us within the next 24 hours. And as Liv mentioned, it will include the link for the recording of today's session, as well as the deck that we presented from. If you have not yet had a chance to read the full report, we really encourage you to do so. You can download it now by using the link on your screen. I've seen it pop up there below. And we'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's session. A short survey may appear shortly on your screen, and it'll only take a few minutes to complete. Your feedback really helps us shape future sessions. So thank you again. Apologies that we did run slightly over, but it's such an interesting topic. We hope to see you all in future sessions. And yeah, thanks, Liv. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. And if any of you have questions for either of us, we're both on LinkedIn as well. Don't hesitate to reach out, ask us questions. We're definitely happy to connect and chat and keep the conversation open.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for staying.